The call came on a Tuesday afternoon, just as I was finishing surgery on a terrier who'd swallowed half a tennis ball. My hands were still gloved when my phone started vibrating across the counter, lighting up with the word Mom. I hesitated before answering. My mother never called without a reason, and her reasons were never small. Still, habit, or maybe guilt made me swipe accept. Maya, sweetheart. Her voice came bright and breathy, like she was already mid-celebration. You'll never guess. Your father and I are finally taking that European cruise we've talked about for years. 7 weeks. Isn't that wonderful? I smiled weakly, peeling off my gloves. That's great, Mom. You deserve a break. Yes, well, it's about time. She laughed lightly. Now, we just need a tiny favor from you. My stomach tightened. What kind of favor? It's about Luna, she said. Emma's going to California for her art retreat, and obviously, we can't take a dog on a ship. So we thought you could keep her for a while. I froze. Luna? You mean Emma's Luna? Of course, who else's? My throat went dry. Luna was 12 now, a golden retriever with eyes soft as honey, and lungs slowly filling with cancer. I'd seen her last month at the clinic. I knew she didn't have long. Mom, Luna's sick, I said softly. She needs constant care, medications, maybe even Roman IV fluids soon. I can't just, oh, honey, you're perfect for this, she interrupted. You're a vet, aren't you? Who better to look after her? There it was, the sentence I'd heard in different forms my whole life. You're the responsible one, Maya. You can handle it, Mom. I tried again, I'm busy. I have patients, emergencies, shifts. Please don't be difficult about this, she sighed. Emma can't cancel her retreat, and we already booked the cruise. We're counting on you. It's only 7 weeks. 7 weeks. 7 weeks of watching a dog I loved slowly fade away while my family sipped cocktails on the Mediterranean. Behind her voice, I heard my father call out, "She'll do it. She's the responsible one." That sealed it. When the call ended, I sat there in the quiet clinic, listening to the hum of the air conditioner and the faint ticking of the clock. The terrier on the table stirred softly, waking from anesthesia, and I envied him. He'd forget his pain by morning. I, on the other hand, had just agreed to reopen an old wound. Luna arrived the next morning. Emma didn't even come herself. She sent a friend with the dog and a plastic bag of half-empty medications. Luna's fur had lost its sheen, her ribs sharp beneath my hands, but when she saw me, her tail thumped weakly, and a small, familiar spark lit her eyes. "Hey, sweet girl," I whispered, kneeling beside her. "They left you, didn't they? But I won't." Her nose pressed into my palm, warm and trembling. In that moment, the resentment I felt toward my family tangled with something deeper. Love, grief, and the quiet understanding that sometimes we bear the burdens no one else will. As I watched her limp into my living room and collapse beside the couch, I knew those 7 weeks would change everything. The first few days were quiet, too quiet. Luna moved through the house like a ghost, her paws barely making a sound on the hardwood floor. She slept most of the time, curled near the window where the sunlight spilled in like honey. Sometimes, she'd lift her head when I came home from the clinic, tail giving one slow wag before she drifted back to sleep. I rearranged my schedule to come home more often. My boss didn't ask questions. Maybe she saw the exhaustion in my face, the guilt behind my smile. Caring for dying animals was part of my job, but this was different. This was Luna. Every morning, I measured out her pills, pain meds, antibiotics, supplements, and coaxed them down her throat with bits of chicken. She never resisted. She just looked at me with those old, patient eyes, as if she knew I was fighting a battle I couldn't win. By the end of the first week, her appetite had faded almost completely. I tried everything: boiled rice, shredded turkey, broth. She'd lick once, then turn her head away. I could see the weight melting off her frame. Meanwhile, my phone lit up with messages from my family group chat. "Mom, just had champagne on deck. Look at this sunset. Dad, we might extend the trip another week. Rome is stunning. Emma, California is amazing. Finally getting to focus on my art again." Not one message asking how Luna was. Not one call. I typed and deleted replies a dozen times before finally sending. "Luna's getting worse." No one responded. By week 3, The house smelled faintly of antiseptic and wet fur. Luna had started bleeding slightly from her gums, a sign the cancer was spreading faster than expected. I slept on the floor beside her every night, waking at every small sound. At work, I caught myself snapping at coworkers, forgetting appointments, drifting off mid-sentence. The weight of it all, Luna's pain, my family's absence, the years of quiet resentment, pressed on my chest like a stone. One evening after a particularly hard day, I found Luna lying by the door, breathing fast and shallow. I knelt beside her and stroked her fur. "Don't you dare leave me yet," I whispered, voice breaking. Her eyes fluttered open, and her tail brushed the floor once. I wanted to believe she was telling me she'd try. In week 4, while refilling her meds, I found a folded envelope inside the bag Emma had sent. It was Luna's old vet file, dated almost 2 years earlier. Out of curiosity, I opened it, and froze. Recommend further testing possible mass near the spleen. Honor declined ultrasound at this time. The notes were clear. The tumor had been caught early, and Emma, my perfect golden sister, had done nothing. My hands trembled. For years, Emma had bragged about how she rescued Luna, how she loved her like a child. But when Luna had needed her most, she'd ignored her pain. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying every family dinner, every compliment my parents had lavished on Emma's big heart. It all rang hollow now. As Luna slept beside me, I made a silent promise. "I'll be here until the end." I whispered into her fur. "No one else deserves you." Her tail thumped once softly, gratefully, and though my heart ached, a strange calm settled over me. For the first time in years, I didn't care about being the responsible one. I just wanted to be the one who stayed. By the 6th week, Luna barely moved. Her breathing came shallow, her ribs rising like waves that never quite reached the shore. I could see the fight leaving her, the light fading behind her eyes. Every instinct in me screamed to save her, to find one more treatment, one more miracle, but I knew better. I'd watched too many animals slip away to mistake dying for weakness. One evening, I carried her outside to the small patch of grass behind my house. The air was still warm, tinged with the faint scent of lilacs. I laid her down gently and sat beside her, stroking her head. "Remember when you used to chase leaves here?" I whispered. "You'd spin in circles until you fell over." Her tail twitched once, a ghost of the joy she used to have. The sun was sinking low, a slow cascade of amber and rose across the horizon. It painted her fur in gold, and for a moment she looked like the puppy I first met, a bright, wiggly ball of love who trusted everyone. "I'm sorry they left you," I said, my voice cracked. "You didn't deserve that." She blinked, slow and heavy, and rested her muzzle against my knee. I felt her breath falter, then steady again. I stayed with her like that for hours, whispering stories, telling her how good she was, how much she was loved. When the sky turned deep violet, she took one last soft breath, and then quietly she was gone. For a long time, I couldn't move. The world felt impossibly still, like everything had paused to honor her passing. I pressed my forehead to hers and let the tears come. "You're free now," I whispered. The next morning, I called the cremation service. They came gently, respectfully. I followed the van until it disappeared, then drove to the old oak tree behind my clinic. When they returned Luna's ashes, I scattered them there, watching the wind carry the dust into the light. It was the most peace she'd had in months. A week later, my parents returned, tan and smiling, rolling their luggage through my front door as if nothing had changed. My mother looked around, her gaze landing on Luna's empty bed. "Where's Luna?" she asked casually, like she was asking about a misplaced sweater. I swallowed hard. "She passed away last week." My mother gasped. "You let her die without us. We didn't even get to say goodbye." "She was in pain," I said. "It was her time," my father frowned. "You could have waited. We would have liked a few last pictures at least." I stared at them, at their bronzed skin, their expensive luggage, their careless entitlement, and something inside me broke. "She wasn't a photo opportunity," I said quietly. "She was dying." My mother's eyes narrowed. "Don't take that tone, Maya. We trusted you to take care of her." I laughed, a sharp, broken sound. "You trusted me to clean up your guilt. Emma ignored her illness for 2 years. You both left her when she needed you most. I didn't take care of her." I loved her, there's a difference. The silence that followed was heavier than any argument. My parents looked away, unable, or unwilling, to face me. I realized then that no apology would come, no acknowledgement, no gratitude, but I didn't need it anymore. As they retreated into their world of denial and convenience, I stood by the window, looking out at the oak tree in the distance. The setting sun glowed through the branches, just like the evening Luna left me, and for the first time I didn't feel alone. I felt free. The house felt unbearably quiet after that confrontation. My parents left the next morning without another word, the echo of their suitcases rolling across the floor the only sign they'd ever been there. I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of cold coffee, staring at Luna's empty collar. I thought grief would feel like fire. Instead, it was more like fog, soft, slow, impossible to escape. Every corner of the house reminded me of her. The rug where she used to nap, the door she scratched when she wanted to go outside, the quiet click of her nails that would never sound again. I took a week off work, partly to rest, partly because I couldn't face another sick animal yet. The truth was, I was afraid of seeing another pair of brown eyes looking up at me, asking for help I couldn't give. One evening, I decided to go through Luna's records again. The vet reports, the test results, the medications. All of it told a story of neglect disguised as love. Emma had ignored every early sign, every chance to give Luna a longer, easier life. I opened my laptop and began typing. I didn't write a letter out of rage had burned itself out. What I wrote was cold, factual, and honest. I attached Luna's records, along with a few photos, one of her frail body during her last days, another of the old vet's warning Emma had dismissed. Then I sent it to my parents, to Emma, and without quite meaning to our extended family. No words, no accusations. Just truth. By the next morning, my phone was vibrating nonstop. Missed calls, unread messages. I didn't open any of them. I didn't have to. Truth had a way of finding its own audience. For the first time, I didn't feel small in the shadow of my family. I felt weightless. A month passed. The world slowly began to turn again. I went back to the clinic, though part of me was still tender, like a wound not quite healed. I spent more time in the shelter wing, less diagnosis, more healing. That's where I met Saul. He was a wiry little mutt with mismatched eyes and a tail that curled into a question mark. He trembled when I reached for him, but when I offered my hand again, he leaned into it. That tiny act of trust felt like the sun breaking through after weeks of rain. I adopted him that same day. Saul followed me everywhere, into the kitchen, onto the porch, even into Luna's old sleeping spot by the window. He filled the empty spaces without trying, just by existing. One afternoon, Emma came to visit. Her eyes were swollen, her voice soft. "I saw your email," she said quietly. Everyone did. I nodded but said nothing. I'm sorry, Maya, for everything. I should have done more for her. I was selfish." Her voice cracked on the last word. I wanted to be cruel, to make her feel the ache I'd lived through. But when I looked at her, truly looked, I saw guilt eating her from the inside out. I sighed. "I forgive you," I said finally. "Not for you, for me." Tears spilled down her cheeks and she nodded. When she left, Saul climbed onto my lap, his head pressing against my chest. I looked out the window at the oak tree where Luna rested, the evening sun filtering through its leaves like liquid gold. "I chose who I love this time," I whispered. The wind stirred the branches gently, and for a moment I swore I heard a faint, familiar thump, like a tail wagging in the distance. And I smiled.